The unforgettable disappearance of Lila Montgomery, Sandpoint, Idaho, 1998. On a brisk October evening in 1998, 22-year-old Lila Montgomery vanished without a trace from the quiet outskirts of Sandpoint, Idaho. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, just an empty campfire smoldering in the dense pines beside Lake Pend Oreille. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. As a result, this episode will feature a single image as its background. Think of this as more an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. Lila was known to those closest to her as fiercely independent yet quietly reserved, a young woman whose presence carried a gentle resolve that belied her years. She had recently returned home from Boise State University, where she'd studied environmental science. The fall of '98 was supposed to be a time of transition, summer fading into autumn, the slow return to routines, and for Lila, a much-needed respite before starting a local conservation internship. On the evening of October 14th, Lila left her family's modest cabin on the edge of the forest. Her plan was simple: a solo camping trip to reconnect with nature, the very place that had grounded her throughout her childhood. The forest trails near Lake Pend Oreille were familiar territory, places where she had hiked countless times since adolescence. Friends describe her as someone who found solace in quiet, secluded spaces away from the town's noise. The weather was turning colder, with a crispness in the air that heralded the early onset of winter. The forest was alive with the rustling of leaves, the occasional hoot of an owl, and the crackling of dry branches beneath their feet. Lila's campsite was a small clearing no more than a few hundred yards from the shoreline, a spot marked by a large, moss-covered boulder and a cluster of ancient cedar trees. She was last seen at dusk, around 6:30 p.m., by a couple hiking near the lake who noticed a small campfire glowing through the trees. Lila had been setting up her tent, humming softly to herself as the light faded. She had no cell phone, a deliberate choice to disconnect, and only carried a basic backpack with camping essentials, a flashlight, and a journal. When she failed to return the next morning, her family reported her missing. Local authorities launched an immediate search, scouring the thick woodland trails and shoreline with K-9 units and volunteers. What they found was baffling. Her tent was still standing, clothes neatly folded nearby, and a partially consumed meal left untouched. But Lila was gone. No footprints were leading away from a site other than her own. No signs of a struggle. The campfire had been doused, but recently, as if someone had been there not long before the search teams arrived. A set of unfamiliar tire tracks was found several miles from the campsite, but nothing concrete linked them to Lila. Over the weeks that followed, the case file, designated SPD case #98-1057, grew with the addition of interviews and tips. Yet, all leads eventually dried up. The FBI was called in to assist, and the disappearance became the subject of regional news coverage. Despite the growing public interest, the mystery remained locked in silence. Friends and family held on to the hope that Lila would return, but as the cold Idaho winter set in, that hope began to diminish. Her journal, recovered from the campsite, contained entries that hinted at a restless mind, thoughts of escape, and fear of an unnamed presence she felt watching her in the woods, but nothing concrete that could explain her disappearance. To this day, no definitive evidence has surfaced. The forest around Lake Pend Oreille remains a place of quiet mystery, where the unanswered questions of Lila Montgomery's disappearance linger like the fading autumn fog. The case remains open, an enduring enigma in the annals of Sandpoint's history. The day Lila Montgomery disappeared remains etched into memories of those closest to her and the officers who responded to the case. What began as a routine outing evolved into an enduring mystery, marked by painstaking searches, unanswered questions, and whispers that grew louder over time. Morning of October 14th, 1998. 7:30 a.m., Lila Montgomery woke up early in her family's cabin on the outskirts of Sandpoint, Idaho. According to her mother, Elaine Montgomery, Lila was quiet but appeared composed. She ate breakfast alone in the kitchen, oatmeal and black coffee, and told her mother she planned to spend the day alone, hiking and camping near Lake Penn-Ryle. She said she needed time to think. Elaine recalled in a police interview, SPD case hashtag 98-1057 INT003. She was always close to nature. This wasn't unusual for her. 8:15 a.m., Lila packed her backpack with essentials: a sleeping bag, a small tent, a flashlight, a journal, and a packed sandwich. She left behind her cell phone. She did not own one, a fact confirmed by family and friends. No one questioned this, as Lila often preferred to disconnect from the world. 8:45 a.m., she left the cabin, driving her 1991 forest green Subaru Outback to the trailhead near the eastern shore of Lake Penn-Ryle. The vehicle was parked in a small gravel lot, and witnesses later confirmed that they saw the car there throughout the afternoon. Midday, 11:30 a.m. A local fisherman named Carl Jensen spotted a young woman fitting Lila's description walking along the shore. Jensen's logbook entry, SPD case file hashtag 98-1057, WIT 005, recorded: young female, early 20s, light brown hair tied back, wearing a green jacket and hiking boots. She looked calm, maybe a bit pensive. No interaction occurred between Jensen and the woman. He observed from a distance. Noon, Lila arrived at a clearing roughly 200 yards from the shoreline, nestled between towering cedars and thick underbrush. This clearing would later become her campsite. Her steps were purposeful but unhurried, according to a volunteer searcher who would later describe the scene. She appeared comfortable with the terrain. Afternoon, 1:15 p.m., a ranger from the Sandpoint Forest Service, Mark Ellison, noted no unusual activity on his routine patrol around the lake's perimeter. Ellison's report, SPD case file hashtag 98-1057, and G002, described the area as quiet, no signs of trespass or disturbance. Late afternoon, 3:45 p.m., Lila was seen by another hiker, Emily Watson, who was walking a nearby trail. Watson described Lila as quiet, focused, setting up a tent in the clearing near the lake. Watson briefly exchanged a polite nod, but no conversation ensued. Watson's statement was taken during the early phase of the investigation, dusk and disappearance. 6:30 p.m. Lila was last positively identified by a local couple, Greg and Sandra Hale, who were hiking near the campsite. They reported seeing a small campfire burning and Lila humming softly as she adjusted her tent. She seemed at peace, Greg Hale told investigators. We thought it was nice to see someone out enjoying the woods this late. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Lila Montgomery. Evening and initial alarm. 8 p.m., the Hales passed back through the area and noted the campfire had been extinguished but was still warm. No sign of Lila was visible. 10 p.m., when Lila did not return to her family cabin, Elaine Montgomery called the local sheriff's office to report her daughter missing. The search begins. The Sandpoint Police Department immediately dispatched search teams to the forest. Sergeant Daniel Harper coordinated the initial response, describing it as a focused effort to locate Ms. Montgomery before nightfall intensified the risks. Search dogs were deployed, but tracking proved difficult in the dense forest littered with fallen leaves, which obscured footprints, physical evidence, and anomalies. At the campsite, investigators found Lila's tent, intact but unoccupied, a campfire recently extinguished, a journal on a rock near the tent, mainly containing routine entries but concluding with a page that read, "I feel eyes watching me in the trees." Her backpack, containing her flashlight, food, and water, was neatly arranged. There are no signs of struggle or forced entry around the site. No footprints led away from the campsite other than Lila's own. Investigators noted the absence of any other prints, which was suspiciously unusual given the isolated location. No vehicle other than Lila's Subaru was found in the parking area. Unusual witness report, the first red herring. During the second day of searching, a report came from a local hunter, identified only as John D. He claimed to have seen a shadowy figure moving near the campsite around dusk on the 14th. He described the figure as wearing dark clothing, possibly a hooded jacket, moving swiftly but silently. Police pursued this lead but found no evidence to corroborate John Diaz's account. Surveillance of local known offenders yielded no matches. The tip was ultimately deemed unreliable, but it fueled early rumors in the small town, adding an unsettling layer to the case. Law enforcement response and coordination. The FBI's Boise field office was called in to assist, given the suspicious nature of the disappearance. Special Agent Karen Rhodes arrived on October 16th to work alongside local authorities. Joint task force meetings began, designating the case as high priority under case number FBI SPD 1998-1057. Investigators focused on interviewing friends, family, and last known witnesses, searching a 5-mile radius around the campsite, forensic analysis of the campfire remains and soil samples, reviewing regional traffic cameras, though the footage from 1998 was limited, family and community reaction. Lila Montgomery appeared on a local news broadcast pleading for information. "We just want Lila back," she said, voice cracking with restrained emotion. "She's not a troublemaker. She wouldn't leave without telling someone." Friends of Lila shared memories of her quiet kindness and love for the outdoors, painting a picture of a young woman unlikely to vanish voluntarily. Media coverage and public speculation. Local newspapers ran front-page stories, and the case became a topic of regional talk shows. Speculation ranged from an accident in the wilderness to abduction. Theories grew, fueled by the lack of physical evidence. One local columnist suggested Lila might have been involved in something bigger, hinting at drug trafficking rumors that held no foundation and were quickly dismissed by police. Second red herring, the suspicious vehicle. On October 18th, a tip came from a motorist who reported seeing a blue pickup truck speeding near the trailhead on the night of the 14th. The car allegedly bore an out-of-state license plate. A check of DMV records showed no matches to known suspects or persons of interest, and no other witness corroborated the sighting. Police followed up but never linked the vehicle to Lila's disappearance. Investigation challenges. Detective Laura Simmons, lead investigator, summarized the difficulties. "We have a scenario with no clear motive, no physical evidence pointing to a suspect, and a victim who seemed content and careful. It's rare and frustrating." Environmental factors, including the forest terrain, wildlife, and weather, hindered efforts to recover additional forensic clues. Current status and cliffhanger. Despite exhaustive efforts, weeks turned into months with no breakthrough. Lila Montgomery's case file remains active but unsolved. The question remains, did Lila leave the campsite voluntarily? Was she taken against her will? Or did something far more complex unfold beneath the canopy of those silent pines? The shadows in the forest keep their secrets. And as the fog settles once more over Lake Pennyrile, the search for answers goes on. More than 2 decades have passed since 22-year-old Lila Montgomery vanished from the dense forest near Lake Pennyrile in Sandpoint, Idaho. Despite the tireless efforts of local law enforcement, federal agents, search teams, and the community, her disappearance remains an unsolved enigma. What exactly happened to Lila that October evening in 1998? Over the years, several theories have emerged, each carrying its weight of possibility and doubt. In this final chapter of her story, we explore the most prominent theories, the evidence supporting and contradicting each, and the lingering questions that continue to perplex those seeking answers. Theory 1. Abduction. Overview. The theory of abduction is often the first to surface in disappearances like Lila's, especially when the circumstances are unclear and no body is found. Given the isolated location and the lack of footprints or signs of struggle, some speculate that an unknown party may have taken her. Supporting evidence. The extinguished campfire and abandoned tent suggest that Lila left the site suddenly or was forced to leave. The report by John D., the local hunter who claimed to have seen a shadowy figure near the campsite at dusk, though uncorroborated, introduced the idea of a lurking presence. The unexplained tire tracks found miles from the campsite may indicate a vehicle used to remove someone from the area. Early police investigations did not find any natural hazards or accidental causes that could explain her disappearance. Challenges to this theory. There were no confirmed eyewitnesses to any suspicious person or vehicle near the campsite. No physical evidence, such as fibers, hair, or personal items, was recovered to suggest a struggle or presence of a third party. Hikers, hunters, and locals regularly patrol the area, yet none reported any suspicious activity that night. Law enforcement perspective. Detective Laura Simmons noted in a 2000 interview, while abduction remains a possibility, the lack of forensic evidence makes it difficult to pursue suspects. We never ruled it out, but we also never had enough to make an arrest or even identify a person of interest. Theory 2. Voluntary disappearance. Overview. Another theory proposes that Lila left intentionally, seeking escape from pressures or circumstances unknown to her family and friends. Her journal entries reference a sense of being watched and a desire to disappear, which some interpret as signs of internal conflict. Supporting evidence. The journal entry mentioning eyes watching me in the trees may indicate fear or paranoia, possibly hinting at mental health struggles. Lila's lack of phone and preference for solitude aligned with a personality drawn toward withdrawal. There were no signs of struggle at the campsite, and the organized nature of her belongings could indicate a planned departure. Challenges to this theory. Those close to her, including family, close friends, and professors, did not notice behavioral changes indicative of a planned disappearance. No financial activity, use of her ID, or contact with anyone was recorded after her disappearance. Voluntary disappearance is statistically rare for young women with strong family ties and no known issues. Family perspective. Lila Montgomery refuted this theory firmly. Lila was never the type to run away. She was scared sometimes, yes, but she always came back. If she had wanted to leave, she would have told me. Theory 3. Accidental death in the wilderness. Overview. The rugged terrain and unpredictable weather in northern Idaho have led some to suspect that Lila fell victim to a tragic accident, perhaps a fall, exposure, or animal attack that left her unable to call for help or leave evidence. Supporting evidence. The forest is dense and uneven, with cliffs, ravines, and thick brush that can trap or injure a person. Autumn weather can turn quickly cold, and hypothermia is a documented cause of death in the region. Despite thorough searches, no remains or personal effects were found, which is unusual but not unprecedented. Challenges to this theory. Extensive searches over months and years failed to locate any physical remains. Search dogs did not pick up a scent trail beyond the immediate area of the campsite. No signs of injury or distress were found at the camp or nearby trails. Search team insights. Sergeant Daniel Harper remarked in a statement, "We considered the possibility of an accident early on. The terrain is unforgiving, but given the thoroughness of our searches, it's perplexing that no evidence has been found to support this." Theory 4. Something far more unusual? A supernatural twist. Overview. Though often dismissed in professional circles, a few locals and paranormal enthusiasts have floated the possibility that Lila's disappearance involved unexplainable forces. The eerie atmosphere of the forest, the mysterious journal entries, and the absence of evidence have fueled speculation of supernatural involvement. Supporting evidence. Lila's last journal entry about being watched and the pervasive quiet in the forest suggests an unsettling presence. Some residents speak of ghost lights near Lake Penorile and ancient legends tied to the land. The lack of physical evidence, including footprints or scent trails, has been described by believers as otherworldly. Skeptical viewpoint. Authorities and investigators have repeatedly dismissed these claims as folklore or attempts to find meaning in tragedy. No credible evidence exists to support such theories. Red herrings and misleading leads. Throughout the investigation, several leads distracted from the core search efforts. The shadowy figure, reported by Hunter John D., was heavily publicized early on, but ultimately yielded no credible suspects. The sighting of the blue pickup truck near the trailhead introduced a potential suspect vehicle, but follow-up investigations failed to find any connection to Lila. Local rumors about drug involvement or personal conflicts circulated briefly, but were refuted by thorough background checks. These misdirections, while natural in such a complex case, served to frustrate investigators and family alike, complicating public perception. Psychological and community impact. The disappearance had a profound effect on the small Sandpoint community. Vigils, fundraisers, and memorial hikes became regular fixtures in the years following the 1998 incident. Locals spoke of a shadow hanging over the woods, a reminder that something was lost there that night. Friends described Lila's absence as an open wound, a void filled with unanswered questions. The case also heightened local awareness about wilderness safety and the vulnerabilities faced by those who venture alone into nature. Lila Montgomery's disappearance embodies the complexities of missing person cases in rural and wilderness settings. The blend of solitude, limited evidence, and natural challenges creates a scenario where truth can remain hidden indefinitely for investigators. The case highlights the limitations of technology and forensic science in the 1990s, as well as the challenges in striking a balance between thorough searches and limited resources. For family and friends, the ongoing uncertainty is a daily burden, a puzzle without a solution. The disappearance of Lila Montgomery is a haunting reminder that some mysteries endure without resolution. Was she the victim of a violent crime? Did she choose to vanish into the wilderness? Or was her fate something tragic yet natural? What do you think happened to Lila Montgomery? Was it a tragic accident, a sinister abduction, or something far more mysterious? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more carefully researched stories of real and fictional missing persons and unsolved cases, subscribe to the channel and join the conversation.